Good morning, students. Today we are beginning the poem Keeping Quiet by poet Fabula Nerula. And this poem is about the poet. She talks about the necessity of quiet introspection and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human being. The poem is an anti-war. The poet is stressed with the need of introspection, who is deeply moved by the violence, cruelty to animals, and the plight of a manual worker. Quiet and reception as a solution to a social and political religious problems. They should look inside, analyze their own action, and this will clean every heart and enable all people. So students, here the poet, the introduction of the this poem makes it very clear. The poet here is talking about, she is so much effective, she is so much stressed with the cruelty that human does on the animals, then on the earth, and social and political issues she talks about in this poem. So the first stanza of this poem, it is, now we will count 12 and we will all keep still, for once on the face of earth let's not speak in any language. See, the beginning of a poem is very dramatic. Here we see the poet, he begins the poem with counting of 12, that is introduction of a game of hide and seek, but there's little difference in this. The players of they would be counting 12 and they would not be hiding themselves, but they shall be keeping still, silence for the second. And he says this would mean that for once, for the face of the earth, which means face of the earth, it indicates that, it refers that the countries of the surface of the earth, that whole of this earth which is divided into different countries, on those countries, that is, they have to remain quiet, they won't be speaking any language, and everybody must be introspecting themselves. So this is what the poet here is signifying. Now let us talk about some important aspect here. What does a word 12 signify here? What does it mean? So dear students, it symbolizes unity. It symbolizes unity. Okay, unity is what it is symbolizing. That means coming together. Okay, 12 indicates a picture of time, although it means time, but on other hand it is indicating the unity, that is with the clock, that nobody shall move. And then if we talk about, the poet wants us all to stand still, that is keeping still. And now what does keeping still here signify? That is, there should be essential break from the that is, break he wants from the daily routine, from a daily routine he wants this. Now for once, the face of the earth. Face of the earth, as I have already told you, various countries, that is the surface of various countries. This is what it is talking about. And he says, let's not move anything, but we should introspect ourselves. Introspect. The poet wants that the introspection should be there. This is what the poet is asking us. Now the next stanza, stanza 2. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our hands so much. It would be an exotic movement, without rush, without engines. We should all be together in a sudden strangeness. Now see, the poet here says that let's stop for 1 second. For 1 second we need to be very quiet, and that would be a historical moment. It will be fascinating for all of us. No trains, that is there won't be any rush of the train, that is without rush, without engines, we would all be together, and without any machine work, without any sounds of the vehicles, we would be in quite calm, and it would be a sudden strangeness, and the atmosphere that would be created, that would be a strange atmosphere and sudden, and that would make a little difference. Now class, let us talk about few things here. The poet talks here about the exotic movement. What is exactly an exotic movement? It is known as an exciting and unusual, that is unusual movement. Okay, and why is it unusual movement? Because we are disconnected with the worldly. Okay, disconnecting ourselves with the world. Okay, worldly fears, and this is what the poet is talking about, disconnecting oneself with the worldly fear. It's unusual. Okay, so all the players, all the experiences that we have, that becomes an exotic moment. Now let us move to the third paragraph. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and man getting salt would look at his hurt hands. Now the poet talk here that the fisherman, those fisher who catches fish from the sea, they hurt the other animals, other species. They have specified a whale which is becoming extinct. So the poet is also expressing his view that if we will move to an exotic movement, if we would be moving to a silence, then we would be also helping these animals to safeguard. And the man getting salt would look at his hurt hand, and even those labor class, those people who do not get the time to look after themselves, to look after their bleeding hands because of the collection of the salt, they would also get the time to look at their bleeding hands. Now class, now see, there is images here also, and he talks about man gathering salt, man gathering salt, and this signifies, that is, its meaning is, it is indicating, it is forming an image. ठीक है, image form कर रहा है ये, और जो है this also gives us that is it also shows us power, that is race of power for money and race for money. Okay, it is also indicating this, and that is people are running behind the money. They will also get the time to understand themselves. Now the next chapter, next line, stanza 4. Those who prepare the green wars, wars with the gas, wars with the fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. During now, the poet talks about the war industries which are, will suspend their productions of weapons and other lethal gases. Therefore, there will be no wars for the moment. The poet thinks that the wars are meaningless, because in the lethal wars of a future, no survivor will be left. Instead of fighting, people should come out in their best clothes, walk hand in hand with their brothers under a shady tree. Such silence and stillness will be very beautiful. People will get time for introspection and will be able to find their own form. So these are the things that the poet here is referring. And if we move up with that is with the words there, see, there are the words, there are the expression like green war is there, then there is another expressions, war of gas, ठीक है. Then there is war with fire, war with gas. These are the three expression. Green wars refers to the destruction of trees. Okay, natural vegetation जो है, destruction of tree, that is what it is referring. And if we talk about wars in green, that is the wars of gases, that indicates that is deadly chemicals. Okay, deadly chemical weapons. And now the third is wars with fire, refers to the explosions. Okay, explosion. So see, the poet here, he is indicating all these things in order to describe that how we are, in fact we are disturbing the earth. Now another is victory with no survivor. So this term, it signifies victory with no survivor. The poet here is means that modern war takes a place with the deadly weapons and with the nuclear bombs, and that is going to wipe away entire humanity. And if such thing happen, everything, the earth would be into the ashes, and there will be no one left. The outcome of the war will be that no one would be left there. Then in next line we see, would put on clean clothes and walk about their brothers in the. So the poet here is advising that they should drop their destructive ideas. They should that is drop the thoughts of that is inhumanity feeling, but they should walk together with their brother under the shade of the tree. Clean clothes now here symbolizes the good action. It is indicating a good action. Okay, the poet here is indicating this, that it is a good action, the humanity which would be for the betterment of the society. So now stanza 5, what I want should be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with the death. So what does the poet here means? The poet here is very clear that he does not suggest total inactivity. Action is the hallmark of the life. Inaction means death. So the poet here means he does not want one should tuck up with the concept that inactivity means the death. So the poet does not want to have any association with the death. He only wants that the war industries and the violence should be stopped. This is what the poet indicates. Now stanza 6. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding and of threatening ourselves with death. Now the poet here is indicating spare time to rise above the race for power and the wealth. They will gain a lot. Then they will be able to sit at rest and relax. They will become free from the tension and the fear people face problem because they never try to look within, analyze them then. That is, they do not introspect themselves. Today man fails to understand himself. He threatens himself with death. So the first is keep our lives moving. So here the poet is indicating, that is this line is indicating keeping our lives moving. It indicates, this is a phrase, the journal routines life which include no purpose. That is, we are the human and on meaningless purpose, living on meaningless purpose. So this is what the poet is indicating. Interrupt this sadness. So another is might interrupt this sadness, which the poet describes that sadness so that life may become meaningful. Man should not fear from death. That is, one should not fear from death, and they should live accordingly. Now the next stanza, that is, perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll be counting up 12 and you keep quiet and I'll go. The poet again says that seeming stillness is not the sign of death. It is time to prepare the renewed interest in activities of life. This is a law of nature. In winter, everything goes to sleep, but in spring, everything, the plants, grass, and the streams, they grow active and alive. Thus, stillness and silence have many benefits. So the poet asks again to keep quiet till he counts 12. Now see, the poet is teaching here the lesson through that is which the nature also teaches, that everything that seems dead, like the season of winter, when everything is dead, again proves to be alive. Then when spring comes, everything grows new and fresh. So the poet here describes about the benefits of the life, and he says, the poet says, he is very pessimist, and he plays to place, spreading a message of global fraternity and value of interception. He does not believe in war, he believes in peace, and this is what the poet is teaching in this poem. Now the message that poet conveys here is universal brotherhood and peace. It urges the readers to stop all sort of aggression, including those towards environment. If we think ourselves as a hand of the clock on the face of the earth moving in a row, 3 ways won't be good enough to stop at 12. Do some interception. Surprisingly, difference of 3 hands will fade away and there will be perfect universal brotherhood. Title is significant because it emphasizes on the necessity of quiet interception and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among the human beings. In this poem, the poet visualizes a state of comfortable in retail. It is this quietness that gave us essential break to ponder over our stars and their fraternity. Hence the title is justified. Theme of the poem is based on what we should not go on living a routine life, but also take some breaks in between and spend the time in interception in our medrays, and we are forgetting that we are heading towards a world full of arms, weapons. Hardly do we ever think about well-being of brothers. The poet Pebula Nerula stresses upon the idea that we should invest our time and energy in promoting mutual harmony and brotherhood rather than wasting them and making deadly weapons.